Greetings, greetings, greetings. I'm Colin Rankin of the Yeshua Political Party. Happy evening to you. Now, those of you who don't know who we are or what we're about, we're a biblical political party based here in the UK, in England. And the reason why the Lord placed this on my heart was basically when you're out there, you realize so many people don't actually know what's in the Bible. And there's so much misinformation. And you may ask, well, how does that affect politics? Well, the consequences, other religions call it karma. You know, it's one of those things where unless we now at this, you know, what we call in the last days, where people have to get right with God. And most people say, well, I go to church on Sunday, you know, everything's fine. It's a start. But you have to understand that there's certain things that God told us to do. So we know that the Sabbath is Saturday, not Sunday. We know that. So if you're going to go to heaven, let's call it, and say, well, look, I went to church Sunday, well, God will say, well, I asked you to meet me on Saturday. So you're a day late. So these are part of the Ten Commandments. Christmas, Easter is not in here. And these are the things that people need to recognize that, look, you can't say you represent Jesus or Yeshua when you're not following his feasts, his tabernacles, his Passover, Feast of Unleavened Bread, all these things that you're supposed to do, you didn't do it. But you went to church, his house, on the wrong day. So these are the things where people will say, look, I didn't know. And simple things like, look, we know that it doesn't matter what colour God, Yeshua is, but when it comes, it's best to know what colour he is. You know, so we know as a person of colour. Greetings, how are you? God bless you. So again, that's why I set up this political party, so people have an understanding where people can not be antagonistic to each other, but to say, look, you know what, this Yeshua party, this guy's right. And when we look at, well, how do we plan forward for the future? Well, firstly, it has to be inclusive. We don't have an inclusive system. So if we do not have, when I mean inclusive, if you cannot feel the suffering if somebody in the Middle East, in Africa, in South America, for their loss. So if they're living in a tent, say, somewhere in the world, and there's sort of munitions raining down, if you don't have, as a country, an understanding that that's wrong, then God's going to level that playing field. So this is why I'm sort of urging the British people to pray, urging British people to, yes, go to church, but then read the Bible for themselves so that they have a greater understanding, you know, of what's in the Bible. That so we don't practice lawlessness, so we don't practice what you call it, I don't want to say religion, that we don't practice things that are not in the Bible. So I just wanted to quickly say hi to everyone. I know everyone's jumping on at the moment. So yeah, so let me just, Jeanette, it's great to have you on 2489, and Marcel 8064, God bless you. Johnny, it's great to have you on 2491. So Johnny, what you have to do is read our manifesto, which is the Bible. So, you know, it's one of those things, this is very specific to people who sort of want the UK to be better, that we are not going to wars, endless wars, because now that the Bible is being fulfilled, people can now understand that things are lining up. That if you go out in a rubber dinghy and bump into another country, you can't say you found it, because the people who already live there were already there. And what you can't do is say, we're going to civilize these people by raping them and killing them, and then those who won't do as they're told, then we're going to enslave them and separate the children. You know, we have to have that mental capacity of understanding that, well, sooner or later, what do you think God will do? Well, he says in Deuteronomy 28, if you do that, I'm going to wait 400 years. And God waits. And people say, well, why is he waiting 400 years to punish people who are already dead? And that's when you get into the understanding that it doesn't care whether they're alive or not. It's a bloodline. And this is where you have to then study the Bible to say, well, what does it mean, the bloodline? If you don't understand that, if you're going out on a crusade and 400 years later, you still want to go on a crusade, you know, understanding what a crusade is, then God might want to sort of say, well, look, because you like killing so much, we want to leave those people on the earth that are peaceful. You know, it's in every single genre. If you have, say you have a garden and you have weeds, you have one particular weed that just goes around killing everything, then you're going to really plow that garden and you're going to make sure that weed never exists again. And this is the whole point when we look at the world that we're in. How do we make it better? We all make mistakes, and God allows that. God allows you to make mistakes. So these are the things that, say we have a country that had weapons of mass destruction. You know, we can think of lots of different names. And then we invade that country, kill millions of people, and then we say, oh, well, we made a mistake. There wasn't weapons of mass destruction. Then if you have the mental capacity of compassion, then you would want to repair the damage. Not just from a physical level, but from a spiritual level, because everyone must know at some point, you know, no matter what God you serve, there's going to be a leveling. And this is where we look at the UK, we have the cost of living. We have prime ministers being changed all the time. Why do you think that is? You cannot, after 400 years, because that's how God works, keep doing what you've always done. It doesn't matter how you try to sugarcoat it. When you look at the demographics of those from the transatlantic slave trade, they're still the same demographics. So they present themselves in their lowest percentile. So be it wages, conditions. When you look at the Windrush, some of them